guys, so experiment with this easy vid thing here really quick. I'm just going to show you what's up with what I'm starting to work on. So, do I still have it open? All right. So, as part of this project that I'm talking about, and putting all these YouTube videos up for, I decided to get my access to a computer that I could use on a regular basis that had some equipment. All right, what's up, guys? So now I've kind of got this set up so you can see and hear what I'm doing. I need to check and make sure that this stuff is working. All right, so now I can hear it. So I'll have to check this video and see if it. Whatever. I'm not going to edit it, right? So right here. Here, do I know how to use this? Still kind of learning how to use this. Okay, so I'm using MindMup. You can see it up here. This lets me save things to a Google Drive, and I can do collaborative stuff, and I can get people involved in it to kind of help build this thing that I'm calling Chasing the Pattern from Ego Proctor. And so I'm going to put this up on my Patreon page, and this is going to be the primary project of my Patreon account. So that I can be doing something that other people can use, and then I can get, hopefully I can get some money out of this if you guys are willing to donate to this cause, so I can like pay rent and I have an opportunity to move to different locations and experience different things to help expand my awareness of just what it is that I'm talking about. Because I'm already connecting a lot of really powerful dots together into this cohesive narrative. Whether it's right or wrong so far isn't as important as seeing that there's this kind of pattern here. And so I'm going to put together all the evidence, even the things I don't agree with, just because it's there to be seen. Like, I'm not here to be a gatekeeper or filter information. I really don't give a fuck what kind of opinions you guys come up with about this. Because I'm just looking for a way to get a solution, not a cause, because I see a pattern now. And that's it. It's just to trigger a change. And other people can get deep into whatever the hell they want to get into. And if the pattern has to be shifted a little bit, great. But I don't see that it's going to be such a big change to what I'm seeing to really affect the overall pattern. Basically what I'm essentially doing is collecting the puzzle pieces to make the border of this thing, starting from the time frame of the cataclysm that we know happened about 13,000 years ago. And so Robert Schoch's a pretty good introduction to this for people who aren't aware of it. And it's much better than other guys like Graham Hancock or what's his name, Campbell. It's not... Here, let's look, because you guys can see this. Is his name? It's called the Giza Death Star. Dr. Joseph Farrell, and so he got into things like Eric Dollard and the way the pyramids are built and other stuff like alignments and resonance. And I haven't looked really deep into it because it just takes me into directions that are interesting but not really useful for my overall research. And so he's trying to find out a causation for the Anthony Peratt's plasma discharge stuff. Let me look up Anthony Peratt. No, I don't remember the exact name. Okay. So the paper from Peratt is characteristics for the occurrence of high. he's got two, one from 2003 and one from 2007. This is the second one. So characteristics for the occurrence of a high current Z-pinch aurora as recorded in antiquity. Part 2, directionality and source. So this is the part that Rens van der Sloos has a big problem with, because Rens, Marinus Anthony van der Sloos, understands the mythology extremely well, because you can go to the primary sources. So if we look here, one of these links is Renz's stuff. I have to do some more editing to this so it makes more sense, so we can see it. But this is just a template and a prototype. So I've got YouTube videos, topics, books, websites, papers, so that when you look at it by color code, we'll be able to kind of understand what's going on. And I don't know how many people I want to include into editing this, because I don't need anybody who's coming in and slapping their dick in this and just muddying up the water. That's kind of how we got into this fuck situation that we're in now. Is we have too many assholes that are trying to mind fuck the pot, and I don't want to be sitting here fucking editing all this bullshit out, right? I don't. Fuck you. You want to edit this? Build it yourself. So so what I'm going to be producing is like a knowledge map, essentially, with YouTube videos, books, papers, and other media, so that people can dig into this and look into it. And it'll be things like the International Association for the Preservation of Spiritualist and Occult Periodicals. I mean, this stuff goes back to like the 1800s, looking at what was going on in the 1800s as far as the occult spiritualist revival. And this is going back to just before the Civil War and things like that. And so what we end up finding, and so I'm going to point at this for people, and then I'll end up putting the knowledge map later just to show people the kind of stuff I'm getting into. We go to archive.org, and we want to look up Godfrey Higgins, Anacalypsis. All right. Okay, so this is one of the most important books for all of what's going on in the modern age of just mindfuck shit that's going on. Okay, let's take a look at this. Is this the one I want? I don't think so. The whole thing's like 2,000 pages long, and it's 2 volumes. So this is volume 2. This should be good, because the whole thing is about, well, maybe 1,500 pages long. And so what this is so Godfrey Higgins, if you want the full story, and I'll eventually get around to putting this in there. Here's the EasyVid thing, from how to use EasyVid. So we'll do Godfrey Higgins, Armchair Occultist. And so I've had a conversation with this guy that wrote that put together this presentation. His name is Mark Demarest, and so Mark Demarest was trying to chase down Emma Harding Britton, because she was also big in, apparently, from looking at him and then a little bit of the stuff I've read, she was big in helping to create Theosophy. And so trying to figure out where that came from. And so what he does is he breaks down how, from Godfrey Higgins' work, all the people, and this isn't even everybody, but this is just all these different people that had plagiarized Higgins' work. So Higgins had published this in like 1833, maybe the 1820s. But what he was doing is Godfrey Higgins, and let's see if that brings it up. Okay, so we can look at the Freemason archives. It says Godfrey Higgins is Anacalypsis. This is a whole big description, at least a basic description of what he was doing and why he was doing it. And this is talked about a lot in that video. And so Godfrey Higgins just started collecting evidence about the fact that He went into the insane asylums that were being run by the church because he was the magistrate in England for some district he was in. Like I said, the information is in that video. And he found out they were just torturing these people and raping the women. It was just bad. The church was just full of shit. So he was just shocked to find out just how bad this was. And so he had gone through classical education. He knew Greek and Latin, and so he learned Hebrew. And he mostly sat at home and just read a bunch of books, and then I got some hearsay stuff and just collected one of the first major works on what the hell was going on and why all the religions were the same and things like that. And so that's part of the this is part of the reason why the first book that H.P. Blavatsky wrote was called Isis Unveiled, because she just fucking copied this. Right? So she just copied fucking Anaclipsis. And then if we want to get more stuff, then we need to look up this guy named William Emmett Coleman. And so this guy just went nuts whenever Blavatsky started becoming famous. And started writing all these articles like this. Ingrained propensity to falsehood, and all just all this crap about just how corrupt this woman was. I mean, like, but Blavatsky was essentially like Tammy Faye Baker for like the 1800s, just corrupt as shit, just into the politics and just in this thing for money. I mean, she got kicked out of Cairo for like embezzling money. She got kicked out of India because they came in with the Society for Natural Phenomena, or whatever the hell it's called, and so they ran tests to find out what was going on, and they found out that her ceiling was rigged with like wires and cables, and they had sliding doors, and they had people working for her to like do all kinds of crap, and people running into these archives to find old shit that they and then reporting back to her, and so that she could pretend to have like this seance thing and have seen some secret shit that was just published in some magazine that somebody had probably read and told her about, so she used that. And like writing on a cigarette and whatever. It's just crap, right? So Theosophy is just fucking plagiarized bullshit. And it comes out of like Hinduism. I mean, there's even a guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he made it fairly famous in that circle for trying to go into India and or I mean like Tibet and other places, because there's this rumor that there's some kind of like hidden secret Buddhist scripture somewhere or whatever. I don't know. Nobody's ever found them, and so all he's finding is just evidence of what you would get if you translate it into English, right? So this entire thing is just shit. Theosophy is just garbage. Because it's taken the occult, and she was like, she had learned about a guy named John Keeley and sympathetic resonance, and whatever. This thing is just garbage. But it's important if you want to understand where this thing evolves from, and then just to be able to look into Anaclipsis or look into the Celtic Druids. I haven't read a lot of Anaclipsis; it's really hard to read. But the Celtic Druids makes more sense, and like the beginning of the book is pretty cool because it shows the archaeology, what was going on in like the 16, 17, and 1800s before he got involved. Higgins got involved, and all the and all the really famous archaeologists at the time that had been doing the digs at Stonehenge, and the first 100-something pages of the book is like that. And then you read about the Essenes and whatever. I mean, this is all going to be part of this big map, because this goes back to a woman named Paula Gott, who showed that there was goddess worship in the first century, and there's some archaeology for that Jesus was a part of goddess resurrection. And then we got Richard Carrier and the being of light and the solar flares that I'm going to talk about. And so Jesus never existed, right? Jesus was just this character that came out of the solar flares, like Atlas, or the first Adam was this giant being of light. There's lots of stuff going on here. So there's all kinds of evidence that I'm going to be able to share with you guys as I build this thing, and you'll be able to specialize in it if you're already digging into it and you're not aware of what I'm pointing at. Then so we can get more minds on this, and you'll be able to tell me I'm full of shit or whatever. But the issue is that Blavatsky, you just have this hardcore belief system of people going through this and reading it and thinking that it's somehow real. It even influenced groups like Joy of Satan. And so this is where I really kind of got started with all this, not because I believe in Satanism, but because I want to understand what's there. I mean, there's no reason to not read this. And I mean, if you want to understand how to break apart Christianity, you can do like Alan Watts' Zen. If you get his Sound True series, he'll just completely obliterate the entire philosophy that is Christianity. But if you want to get into the occult stuff or whatever these guys I find out. I mean, they're pulling a lot of their stuff from like a Life as Levi, who really wasn't a very trustworthy source as far as making sense of it. There were too many puns and things like that. You can look into a guy named Vincent Bridges, who had kind of broken some of that stuff down and kind of tried to get us into what was going on with the occult. And like Enochian and what works and what doesn't, right? So you can go to vincentbridges.com, and then there's all kinds of stuff in here about his videos and his articles. I mean, he got involved with Dan Winter. He tried to protect Dan Winter by talking about some kind of shit that had been going on, but really just turned out that nobody could really defend Dan Winter because he just kept fucking up. So whether his stuff is authentic or not, like, he ended up getting like Zacharias Sitchin and all kinds of stupid shit involved in his work. And just went off the deep end because he got into the occult without understanding what he was getting into, and it just drove him nuts because he tried to use that to make up shit for plasma physics. But anyway, you can see all these videos that he's got on here. Vincent Bridges talking about living in Prague and how Prague was built, and how Prague was essentially built to be like the Philosopher's Stone, and that the resonant frequencies built by putting the buildings where they were in the places they were just turned Prague into just a place for supernatural experiences. Whatever, really cool shit, Vincent Bridges. Okay. This guy's idea is that the solar flares were started because possibly maybe the center of the galaxy exploded a bunch of energy out, which is how quasars are born. There's other things that go on as it pulses in the center, right? Because this entire universe is alive. It's not some mechanical thing, and maybe that triggered the solar flares. We don't know, right? This is just his idea. Okay, so there's lots of good stuff here, especially if you want to get into the Enochian occult. He was the last and maybe the best reference that I've found, and I haven't looked really deep into it, into like John Dee and Shakespeare. Look at what he has to say about Shakespeare, and that Shakespeare was like a spy for the queen because they were getting into alchemy, and that alchemy was validated at least 7 times in history, that they'd been able to turn different metals into, transmute different metals into gold. And we could do that now with like in like nuclear power plants or like high energy discharges, right? Like turning mercury into gold, and there's other stuff going on, right? So so why wouldn't they be able to do it in the past? Okay, so but I'm not quite at the point yet where I'm ready to put all of this into. Sorry, I've been using Chrome for a long time. I've kind of forgotten how to drive Firefox, and this isn't my computer, so I'm not going to force anybody to log out and log back in. Okay, so again, so Robert Schoch, you can get into the videos here. Let's see, is this? Okay, so this is Rens van der Sloos, and so Rens van der Sloos is the guy that did all of the Rens van der Sloos, and I've talked about a lot by email about some stuff, and it just keeps pushing me forward because he's key. He's like the center of all of the best references in the mythology that'll kind of get you out of Sitchin, out of Van Doniken, out of Theosophy. You'll get out of the Bible. You'll get out of all these things, looking for things in the past, because he's done hundreds and hundreds of mythological traditions around the world with rock art that I can show you or talk about later, and the plasma physics. And I've got his books, and I'm reading through them, and it's just mind blowing. This is where I really started to see a lot of the pattern. He has an amazing set of books, and he's getting ready to write a second set of books. So whatever, this guy is very important to follow if you're into this and you want to get your head right. At least from what I understand, and like this guy has like a master's degree in like ancient languages. He knows like a dozen ancient languages. He grew up wanting to figure out what mythology was all about, and he just did it. He put it together. He traveled the world, and he did the GPS readings for the everything. I mean, it's just an amazing amount of work that this guy has done for years and years and years, and he's just trying to get this thing together. I don't want to blow up his career or anything like that. So, but I am keeping aware of all the things I'm doing. His books are published at lulu.com. You can just look up his name, Meredith Anthony van der Sloos, and whatever, you'll be able to get his books, Traditional Cosmology, and for like $5 a pop, there's a couple of PDFs on there that you can download and just kind of see what's going on here. I guess I'll show this to you. Okay, so these two, right? The world axis is an atmospheric phenomenon. The mythology of the world axis, exploring the role of plasma in world mythology. Right, and so this is the kind of stuff he's building. And then traditional cosmology, you can get them in hardback, paperback. But these are the books that go through global mythology, and they show that there's 425 areas of agreement between these global myths. And then he's doing this as a just to compare the mythology, to show that there's stuff in the mythology without getting into the plasma physics and without building a theory. He just wants you to see what's going on. And so, like, they're all on sale, it looks like. So if you want to get them, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully this is a Lulu thing and not because he's trying to get rid of it. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on here with all these things being on sale. I haven't talked to him much about it, except for his web page is having problems, like the email address and the link here to this book page is down. So, whatever. So it's there. And then this guy will get you. This guy will get you just dialed into what all this ancient mythology is about. Okay. So yes, Anaclipsis, you can get Volume 1, Volume 2, and Celtic Druids on here. Volume 1, you're going to want... let's see if I can do this here. I haven't used this in a while. I used to get this and email it to people all the time, but it's been a while since I've played with this. Okay, so we're looking for... a volume 1, and it's right. So there's several people who put these things up, and it's really hard to find copies. There are only like 250 copies ever made, and so there'll be lots of different ones. And yeah, so here's what you want: 910 pages. So you want to find the one that's 910 pages long, and it'll get you. There at the end of book 2, the very end, there's some notes added by somebody else after he died, because Godfrey Hagen just kind of died before he got finished, like 1833, and he was like, the Jesus in the Bible isn't real. I think it was something else, right? So he's one of the early guys to really get into the evidence that we don't need to believe in Jesus necessarily. He was into the spiritual Jesus, and so this is like the different evolutions of Jesus. I mean, fuck, this is theosophy. Like, this is just it's just silly. Like the 9 other Jesuses or whatever. I mean, I started getting into theosophy and I went, blah. Because you get into Alice Bailey and what was coming out of like the early 20th century after they decided to evolve it after Blavatsky, because Blavatsky's work was just about useless. So they kept referencing back to that, but Blavatsky's work was referencing back to this. And then if you look up William Emmett Coleman, let me close some of these. We'll keep that one open. So William Emmett Coleman. Okay, the sources of Madame Blavatsky's writings. And so this is what he's identified. And so other people have come along and they were like, oh, we couldn't find it. But he uses computational and linguistic analysis through Google Analytics and things like that to pull these books together to show that it's definitely like this shit ISIS Unveiled and crap like that was definitely plagiarized. And then other people have gone through these sources, and I haven't dug into it enough, but it looks like from conversation with Mark Demarest and other people that yes, it just most definitely this entire thing is just stapled together. That's what theosophy is. It's just some shit stapled together. So I'm gonna check how much time I got. 20 minutes left in this video. Okay, whatever. So anyway, so the solar flare evidence, this Schock in his official papers, right, because the way academia works, he had thought it was like 5,000 BCE to 7,000 BC. In the book, though, he says, yeah, but it could have been earlier. And so here is linked a paper that I went ahead and attached into this. I'll end up sharing this and publishing it on my Patreon page, but it's from La Valliette, and this is evidence for a solar flare cause for the Pleistocene mass extinction. And he's putting it at about 13,000 years ago, right? So all this, so this is this is the evidence you guys are looking for, right? If you guys are looking for evidence, so I'm gonna start sharing this stuff so that you guys can see it, and it's not just me blustering out and saying blah 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 blah. Look what I found! Look what I found! Look what I found! Give me money because I'm gonna shit on you for money, right? I don't really want money because remember my goal is to like do open source the entire planet. All human ideas and all human production should just be open fucking sourced, especially with the technology we've got now, right? So yeah, so I'm playing with some of this, and I'm gonna do some video editing and whatever. So it's gonna be fun. This is I've got this tattooed on my chest. I was dating a girl in China, and she helped me build this thing. This is the Shart's Labyrinth. It's a little bit bigger, Labyrinth of Life and Death, and then the Yin Yang and whatever. I don't want to explain that right now. So other videos would be what is this one? Yeah, so this is just a search basic for Robert Schoch's Forgotten Civilizations. You got all kinds of videos going on about that. Stick to Schoch. Don't get too much into the other random crazy people. There's also the link to Renz Vandersloot on Red Ice Radio. I didn't listen to hour 2. You'd have to pay for that, but I've got his book, so I don't need to listen to it. I've got his email address, so I don't need to worry about it. I can just ask him questions. And then this one is interesting. This is the Ancient Aliens guys, but these guys are engineers. Oh, shut up. Fucking ads. Go away. Fucking kill this shit, please. Okay, so this is just a short video, but these guys are talking about the way they fit together perfectly, and all kinds of stuff, right? So they're talking about all the evidence that these things, that you have 2 distinct periods of construction, and they're bringing engineers out with like serious tools to measure this stuff. This is no longer just geek guys getting on there and going, like that funny haired dude that's going, it's aliens, and there's that meme. No, so whether it's aliens or not, it doesn't matter. Like I kind of say somewhere in this, yeah. So these guys bring hardcore engineering measurements and observations in ancient megalithic sites. Whatever, I can edit the fucking grammar. It's just a short video to get you into some of these ideas, whether it was aliens or just humans. They were more in tune with nature. It is unclear from what I have looked into, right? So I'm not just gonna like admit it was aliens, because we definitely have the intelligence to build shit like this if there was a different harmonic before the solar flares than after. And then those stone buildings would have been all that was left, because it does talk about in that paper from La Valliette that there's evidence of global fires at the same time that the solar flares were hitting. So we look into Patten, and Patten talks about a lot of stuff, and he maps the globe, and right, we get evidence of this rock art, and there's all kinds of different rock art. The part 1 in 2003 is all about the what is the evidence of the plasma physics and the rock art. This is just where is it and how widespread is it. So here's what he thought was kind of happening, because he thought it was this. Renz Vandersloot has a different thing I'll have to show you. Right, but he gets into the physics of what he was creating and why it is that this is so important. And different people have tried to use this to like bolster their theories of like planetary alignments and things like that. Right, so he gets into like Middle Age evidence and things from paintings, and people have really gotten deep into this. I'll show you some of that too. Right, so there's all this stuff that he's talking about what it would be like to look into these Birkeland currents, and what kind of imagery you would get when they do computer models and things like that, and why it matches the artwork, and all these lightning creations, and just stuff, right? There's some really cool stuff in here. So let me show you the first paper in this thing. We'll get rid of Blavatsky. I'll do this, and he's got plasmauniverse.info is where Pratt put all of his important stuff. There's all kinds of stuff about plasma physics in there. And so this is the first paper. And so you got, right, the same kind of pictures we saw then, and then he gets into the physics and how it all mapped out, and then what the different kind of shapes were. You can see all these different shapes. This is the Axis Mundi. This is like the 7 levels of heaven or whatever. And all these different shapes that he gets into. And then we can look at all the different things that, and you can read it, whatever. So, and now you start seeing the rock art, and he starts talking about what was going on in global rock art. that becomes like this is the allies, right? People have traced this to like Moloch and other owl-based gods that people worshipped. And Robert Shaw gets into like the Easter Island language that looks like it's just like the first scientific record in the world of the evolution of these things. And they thought it was a language, but it's really just a record of all these solar flares, right? And anyway, so he gets deep into, right. You can see all these different places where these patterns are the same, and it's the same as these. Now, here's where it starts getting into some interesting stuff, because Dr. Richard Carrier has a book called On the Historicity of Jesus, and it's all about Jesus having started as a being of light in the sky. Well, this is all talking about how this, and so because of the way plasma works, even though this is the actual shape of the discharge, and there's lots of evidence about this in Renz's books and other stuff, but when you look at plasma, because of the way the double layers work, and then the way the energy, the way the glow mode is, right? Because you want the highest current density, and I don't understand all of the physics, but I'm just kind of throwing out a concept of what I do understand, and people can correct me, and I'll be able to learn. But that at the double edges, you get more. There's a higher amount of current density, but because of the way you look at it, you only get this 2D image, and so you get this, and that's all you see, which is why it's carved in rocks like this. It's various patterns of that, depending on, and then there's a thing, I guess in, where was it? Not the Zohar maybe, but the Kabbalah about the Messiah being smoke during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Plasma. Okay, so that's Jesus. This is where Jesus began. Is these solar flares and this evidence, and it was all kinds of gods and stuff like that around the world. Tane and Atlas, right, holding up the world, lifting up the sky, whatever. There's all kinds of evidence for this in like traditional cosmology and other people doing other work. A guy named Julian West has a Facebook group called Myths Are History that'll be interesting to look at if you guys want to get into just what's going on with this entire myth comparison stuff. Right, but so he goes into talking about how like Stonehenge, he'll eventually get into how the organizational structure of Stonehenge is the same, fits like the Birkeland current patterns and what would be expected, and so that all these megalithic sites and carvings are really just looking at the Birkeland currents and not like Saturn, as opposed to like a Saturnian planetary alignment. But for some of that, it ends up getting dark. I actually posted to a Facebook group whenever I just really went after the Thunderbolts paradigm, and I showed that that. So Noam Chomsky talks about how the bankers and the industrialists took over, and for like World War I and World War II, but they happen to be mostly in the Zionist party, and so that's just a political party. It has nothing to do with the religion of Judaism. It just so happens that a lot of Zionists happen to be of Jewish descent. But then you get into like the Talmud and how the Talmud is like real rabbinical law, and it in the Talmud it says they can do whatever they want because they can override God's law and the Torah and whatever banking and stuff. I mean, I've talked about this already, but I'll have to get into it later. So I'm going to be building this. And as people look at it, they can give me recommendations about how to change it or what to add to it and whatever. So that's kind of my goal. This is what I'm going to be doing on Patreon, and then I mean it's going to get you in a DMN loop. It's going to get you into books about consciousness and what the books about consciousness are talking about. Guys like Daniel Kahneman and Thinking Fast and Slow, or the Lucifer Principle and Howard Bloom. Even getting to like lucid dreaming, right? You got movies like Waking Life, and then that correlates, at least for that kind of investigation, with a book called The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda, and then there'll be others, right, that I haven't read that people can get into. I just liked Castaneda. But it'll also get into Alan Watts' Zen and what he's talking about, and just lots of stuff, Terence McKenna and all this research, and how it all and how it all is pointing at the same kind of series of events. DMN loop, water is your consciousness, whatever, just stuff. And so I'm going to start putting this together so that everybody can see it, so it's no longer me just talking, and so that more and more people can start narrowing in on some area of this, right? Because the thing is so fucking big that I could spend the rest of my life trying to figure it out. And even though I can think fast as fuck and I learn fast as fuck and I just connect dots, I just cut through the bullshit, as my friend Patrick Spears said. I just cut through the bullshit and I find the core of what's in any piece of information you give me. I will just dig into it until I find out what it is. As long as it's in an English or in a language that I can understand. And I didn't get deep enough into mathematics to dig into the mathematics, so I have to dig into the philosophy of the idea, not into the idea itself. And so one of the keys to doing this kind of research is you have to remember that words have no intrinsic meaning, and neither do numbers or symbols. And so when you look at it, you're looking at patterns of thought, not details in the language. And so what are they trying to talk about, and what kind of language, and so what kind of imagery and idea is it creating in me as I read this? And then, that'll get into the physics of like Dewey B. Larson and Eric Rider and what Eric Dollard pulled out of aether physics and why that is a better form of physics than like quantum mechanics and things like that. There's just a lot of stuff I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to build this giant mind map that'll have links to everything you want, and then so you can dig into it, and then through my Patreon page, like in the community section, you can send me stuff, and then I'll be able to decide if I want to add it to the map or not. But then people will be able to look in the community page, and I'll have a special place where people can like masturbate about Dan Winter and his fucked up fucking theories. And like everybody else, right? Like if you're really into like Graham Hancock, then you can go fucking throw shit at each other in the Graham Hancock section. But uh, I'm gonna do what I can to keep pretty tight control over the primary work here that I put on Patreon. I don't need everybody coming in trying to fucking troll it, because I don't want to spend my time just fucking invalidating people's entire existence to shut them the fuck up. Which I will do. That's why it's like the heavy metal Buddha. And if you don't think I'm a Buddha, you're gonna get the heavy metal anyway, right? That's the whole ego proctor thing. It's just fuck you. Think about the idea of ego and proctor. Look up the definitions, put it together, and you'll have some kind of idea of what that is attempting to represent, but it's still much bigger. The like implications of the ego proctor idea are just big. It's just this, and that just kind of came to me when I started doing mushrooms in Marietta, Georgia, when I was going to college a few years ago, which pushed me to China. Whatever, there's cool stuff in that. Anyway, so the Cataclysms of Shock. There's a website called the Thunderbolts Project. These guys have probably documented the best evidence for things that physics isn't right, but then again, their physics is probably, it's definitely not right, because they're trying to use particles and things. But when you start getting into like Eric Rider and Eric Dollard, and those guys already mentioned about aether physics, then particles fall apart, and I can explain that too. But anyway, so I'm just going to run wild with this, and I'm going to build all this information and put it up into a series of episodes as I build out this. And this is just going to get huge. This is just going to be such a massive amount of information. I haven't looked into every detail of all of it. I'm just looking for meta patterns, if you want to call it that. We like the word meta, which is an idea that you really get if you read a book called Gödel, Escher, Bach. For those of you who know it, especially people that are into artificial intelligence, right? They'll be very familiar with this book, Gödel, Escher, Bach by Hofstadter. And this, for a long time, and in some circles, was the Bible of early artificial intelligence ideas. But as I'm getting into like the DMN loop and how the mind works, what he's essentially doing is he's giving you his conception of what it is that's in that DMN loop, this strange, loopy, infinite, loopy echoing pattern that's in it, and about how language works, and that, and then how the way Zen works, because Zen koans are essentially cognitive dissonance tests against the linguistic programming you've had to invalidate whatever it is you believe in, and that no system of language is sufficiently complete, right? This is the Gödel kind of idea, that no system of language is sufficiently complete that it can define itself. And even if you try to use Novick, I think Peter Novick maybe might be the guy. I don't know. He wrote a book. My dad turned me onto it. That retracing elementary mathematics. so I've got a copy upstairs somewhere. It's a really hard to find book, and I don't think he ever wrote. Yeah, oh, Leon Hankin. Sorry, Leon Hankin. I don't. They'll think it's something else. So Leon Hankin and some guys from the University of Wyoming, who my dad went to college with, wrote this book in the '60s. And this is essentially one of the primary books I think that Common Core is based on. And so what these guys wanted to say is that if you really want to teach mathematics, especially the new generation of children, you need to be able to present to them a complete philosophical representation of mathematics along with the pure arithmetic, so that they have a cognitive understanding of what mathematics is and how it works, and then so that they know how to use the arithmetic, because otherwise you're just memorizing what people are telling you, and you don't understand why it works or how it works. But it ends up they put it into the political system, and it got butchered and ripped apart and turned into this clusterfuck called Common Core math, which is essentially built to take this, and which was an honest attempt to really give us a real understanding of mathematics, is nothing but counting and addition. Um, and this covers most everything you're going to need to get into at least pre-algebra, if not algebra, as far as number theory, natural numbers, and things like that. Whatever. This is an amazing book, and it's just proofs. It's just hardcore mathematical proofs, and it has a brief history of number theory as well, and like counting and stuff like that. And there's other areas we can get that. So much love, guys. I think I'm about out of time here. Looks like I've got about 4 minutes left. Yeah, and so this is just going to be what my daily project is until I get some of the things that I need to get done here in Chicago. I'm also reading some other books, and I've got this other things to do, right? So if you like this, and if you've liked this video and what I've shown you and what I'm going to be able to get you guys into, please go to my Patreon page, be a patron. I'm not going to have any like, you have to pay for this, because, right. Do I have my Patreon page open here? Not yet. Patreon. Okay. Yeah. So, enlightenment for the modern age is what I'm calling it. Just whatever. I need a working title. Right. You'll see my thing. And so I've got a couple of posts up here already. I don't think I have any patrons yet, because I haven't really been pushing this to advertise it. Because I needed to process some pretty heavy shit to be able to get to the point that I'm ready to fire on this. And tonight was a good night to kind of help me with that and show me what it is that maybe I should be doing. Yeah, guys. So much love. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm going to post this video to my Facebook page and onto YouTube, because that's what the easy video thing does, wherever it is. I don't know where it went. I don't know. Maybe I killed my video recording. Let's see what I get here. Yeah. Alright. Alright. Alright, yeah, so, okay, there we go. Yeah, so let me go ahead and kill it. And, or stop this video for now. I'm not really going to do much editing. I did manage to get rid of this crappy sound that's in here. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy this, and I could use the money because I need to pay rent, and I will be able to do this better if I can stay in my tasty medication that kind of helps me stay wherever I need to be to get this done. So keep me in your thoughts. I know I put some stuff on Facebook that's pretty heavy, because I've been doing some pretty heavy stuff. It has some heavy lifting, and there's some heavy grunting that comes along with it. So, remember, Ego Proctor is creating enlightenment for the modern age. That's my attempt, or that's my goal, right? And it's essentially to complete the Bodhisattva dialectic to the next stage, so that then somebody else can take over after this. So, yeah, guys, thanks.